The afternoon sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Catherine Montgomery's townhouse in Manhattan's Upper East Side, casting golden shadows across the Persian rugs her mother had collected decades ago. She stood in her kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, watching the steam rise from her untouched cup of Earl Grey tea. Her hands trembled slightly as she waited for someone to pick up on the other end. "Marcus Reed's office, how may I help you?" A polished voice answered. "Hi, this is Catherine Montgomery. I'm an old friend of Marcus's. Is he available?" She heard the slight crack in her own voice and cleared her throat, trying to project the confidence she'd once possessed so naturally. "One moment, please." The hold music was something classical, probably Bach. Catherine closed her eyes and thought about how much had changed since she and Marcus had walked the halls of Pemberton Academy together. Two 17-year-olds who thought they understood the world. Back then, Marcus had been gangly and earnest, always with his nose in a book about economics or technology. She'd been the popular one, the girl everyone wanted to befriend, dating the captain of the lacrosse team. Now Marcus was on the cover of Forbes, and she was a widow struggling to keep up appearances while her daughter's heart was breaking upstairs. "Catherine." Marcus's voice came through, warm and surprised. "Is that really you?"
Marcus.
"Yes, it's really me." She let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "I know this is completely out of the blue. We haven't spoken in, 5 years? 6, actually. The reunion. You looked great, by the way, there was a pause. How are you? How's Emma?" Catherine's throat tightened at the mention of her daughter. "That's actually why I'm calling. I need to ask you something, and I promise I wouldn't if it wasn't important." She moved to the window, looking out at the tree-lined street below. "Emma's going through something terrible right now. Her boyfriend of 3 years cheated on her with her best friend. Her best friend, Marcus. She found them together."
Jesus Marcus Breated.
"That's brutal. I'm so sorry. She hasn't left her room in 4 days. She won't eat, barely drinks water. I'm worried about her, Marcus. Really worried." Catherine's voice broke. "I know this is going to sound insane, and you can absolutely say no, but I was wondering if you might consider taking her out somewhere. Just dinner or coffee or something. Nothing romantic necessarily, just something to remind her that there are good men in the world. That she's worth someone's time and attention." The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Catherine began to panic. She was about to apologize and hang up when Marcus spoke. "You want me to take your daughter on a date?" "Not a date, exactly. Or maybe a date. I don't know." Catherine pressed her fingers to her temples. "I know how this sounds. I'm a desperate mother who's asking an old friend to essentially babysit her grown daughter. But you're a good person, Marcus. You always were. And Emma needs to see that there are still good people out there. Men who are kind and successful and honest. I just thought maybe if she could spend an evening with someone like you, it might help her remember her own worth." Marcus was quiet again, and Catherine could almost see him the way he used to be, carefully considering all angles of a situation before committing. It was what had made him such a good chess player, and probably what had made him a billionaire. "When?" he finally asked. Catherine felt tears spring to her eyes. "Really? You'll do it?" "Catherine, we've known each other for 30 years. You were one of the few people at that school who was actually nice to me, not because your parents forced you or because you wanted something, but because you're genuinely kind. If you think this will help Emma, then yes, I'll do it." "Thank you," Catherine whispered. "Thank you so much. Does she know you're calling me?" "God, no. She'd be mortified." Catherine laughed despite herself. "I'll tell her I ran into you and you mentioned wanting to catch up. And you asked about her. Would Friday work?" "Friday's perfect. 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock, Catherine confirmed. "Marcus, I really can't thank you enough." After they hung up, Catherine stood in her kitchen for a long moment, wondering if she'd just made a terrible mistake or the best decision of her life. She looked up at the ceiling, toward Emma's room, and whispered a small prayer before heading upstairs. Emma's room was dark, curtains drawn against the afternoon light. Her daughter was curled under her covers, blonde hair splayed across the pillow, looking so much like she had as a little girl that Catherine's heart ached. The room still smelled faintly of the vanilla candles Emma loved, though she hadn't lit one in days. "Emmy," Catherine sat on the edge of the bed. "Sweetheart, I need to talk to you." Emma stirred but didn't turn over. "Mom, I really can't right now." "I know, baby. I know it hurts," Catherine smoothed her daughter's hair. "But I ran into an old friend today, Marcus Reed. Do you remember him? He came to our Christmas party a few years ago." "The tech guy?" Emma mumbled into her pillow. "That's right. We went to school together way back when. Anyway, he asked about you and I mentioned you were home for a while, and he said he'd love to take you to dinner on Friday. Just as friends, you know. He's actually quite interesting, and I think you might enjoy." "Mom." No, Emma finally rolled over, and Catherine's heart broke at the sight of her daughter's swollen, red-rimmed eyes. "I'm not going on a date. Are you serious right now?" "It's not a date. It's just dinner with an old family friend." "It's a pity date, is what it is." Emma sat up, pulling her knees to her chest. "Did you seriously call your billionaire friend and ask him to take out your pathetic daughter because she got cheated on?" "Emma Louise Montgomery, you are not pathetic," Catherine said firmly. "You are heartbroken, and that's completely different. And yes, I called Marcus, but not because I pity you. I called him because you've been in this room for 4 days, and I'm worried about you. You need to be around other people. You need to remember that the world is still turning and that you're still a part of it." Emma wiped her eyes roughly. "I don't want to go. 1 dinner, 2 hours. If you hate it, you never have to see him again, and I'll never interfere in your life again. But please, Emmy, please just try." The battle played out across Emma's face, anger and hurt and exhaustion warring with each other. Finally, she sighed. "Fine. 1 dinner. But I'm not going to pretend to have a good time, and I'm definitely not going to dress up." Catherine smiled and kissed her daughter's forehead. "Thank you, sweetheart." As she left the room, Catherine allowed herself a small smile. It was a start. The next 3 days passed in a blur of Emma's alternating between resistance and resignation. She agreed to shower, which Catherine counted as a major victory, and even consented to let Catherine help her pick out something to wear, though she insisted it be casual. On Friday evening, Catherine watched her daughter come down the stairs in dark jeans and a soft cream sweater that brought out the blue of her eyes. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she'd applied just enough makeup to hide the evidence of her crying. She looked beautiful, though her eyes still carried that haunted look. "You look lovely," Catherine said softly. "I look like someone who's being forced to go to dinner," Emma replied, but there was the faintest hint of humor in her voice. The doorbell rang at precisely 7 o'clock. Catherine answered it to find Marcus Reed standing on her doorstep, looking remarkably different from the boy she'd known but somehow exactly the same. He'd grown into his frame, filled out in a way that suited him, and time had carved character into his face. He wore dark slacks and a navy sweater that made his hazel eyes more prominent. In his hand, he held a small bouquet of white tulips. "Catherine," he said warmly, embracing her, "you haven't aged a day." "Liar," she laughed. "But I appreciate it." Come in. Marcus stepped inside, and his eyes went immediately to Emma standing awkwardly by the stairs. For a moment, no one spoke, and Catherine watched something flicker across Marcus's face. Surprise, recognition of something, appreciation. She'd forgotten to mention to him just how beautiful her daughter was. "Emma," he said, recovering smoothly and offering her the tulips. "These are for you. Your mother mentioned they were your favorite." Emma took them, clearly surprised. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." Marcus smiled, and Catherine noticed it reached his eyes. "You probably don't remember me. I think the last time I saw you, you were still in high school." "I remember," Emma said quietly. "You talked to me about college applications. You were really helpful, actually." "You remembered that?" Marcus seemed genuinely pleased. "Well, I hope my advice wasn't terrible. You went to Columbia, right?" "Yeah," Emma managed a small smile. "Got my degree in art history, much to everyone's confusion." Art history is fascinating, Marcus said. I collect contemporary art, actually. Mostly because I'm terrible at understanding it, and I keep hoping one day it'll click. Catherine watched the exchange with cautious optimism. Emma's shoulders had relaxed slightly, and there was a spark of something in her eyes that hadn't been there in days. You two should go, Catherine said, taking the tulips from Emma. I'll put these in water. Have a wonderful time. As they walked to the door, Emma turned back to look at her mother. Catherine gave her an encouraging nod, and Emma took a deep breath before stepping out into the evening with Marcus. Marcus had driven himself, which surprised Emma. She'd expected a driver, given his wealth. Instead, he opened the passenger door of a sleek black Tesla for her, then walked around to the driver's side. I hope Italian is okay, he said as they pulled away from the curb. There's this place in the village, Piccolo Angelo. It's quiet, the food is excellent, and they don't make a fuss. I thought you might appreciate something low-key. That sounds nice, actually, Emma admitted. She watched the city lights blur past her window. You really didn't have to do this, you know? I'm aware my mother basically guilt you into taking me out. Marcus glanced at her, a smile playing at his lips. Is that what you think happened? Isn't it? Your mother called me, yes, and she told me what you were going through, which I'm truly sorry about, by the way. That's a terrible thing to experience. He paused at a red light and turned to look at her fully. But she didn't guilt me into anything. I said yes because I wanted to, because I remember the smart, funny girl who asked me all those questions about college, and I was curious to see who she'd become. Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks. Oh. Plus, I'll be honest, I don't get out much for actual dinner. Most of my meals are either working lunches or business dinners where everyone wants something from me. The prospect of having dinner with someone who might actually be honest with me was pretty appealing. I can be honest, Emma said. Brutally so, according to my ex. Perfect. Then we'll get along great. The restaurant was exactly as Marcus had described. A small, intimate space with warm lighting and the smell of garlic and fresh bread permeating the air. The owner greeted Marcus by name, leading them to a corner table that offered both privacy and a view of the kitchen. Once they were seated and had ordered, an awkward silence descended. Emma traced the pattern on the tablecloth with her finger, aware that Marcus was watching her with a thoughtful expression. Your mother is worried about you, he said finally. Emma looked up. I know. She shouldn't be. I'm fine. Are you? The simple question, asked without judgment or expectation, broke something open in Emma. No, she admitted. I'm really not fine. I thought I was going to marry him. We'd talked about it. We'd looked at apartments together. And then I came home early from visiting my grandmother and found him in bed with Sophia. Sophia, who I've known since we were 7 years old. Who was supposed to be my maid of honor. Marcus winced. That's unconscionable. The worst part is, I keep wondering what I did wrong. What I could have done differently. Was I not enough? Was I too much? Did I miss some sign that he was unhappy? Emma felt tears threatening and blinked them back furiously. I'm sorry. You didn't sign up for this. Actually, I kind of did, Marcus said gently. And for what it's worth, nothing you did or didn't do caused someone to make the choice to betray you. That was entirely on them. Their character flaw, not yours. Intellectually, I know that, but emotionally, Emma trailed off. Emotionally, you're devastated, and you're grieving not just the relationship but the future you thought you had, and the friendship you thought you had, and your trust in your own judgment. That's a lot to process. Emma stared at him. How do you know that? Marcus smiled sadly. Because I've been there. Different circumstances, but similar outcome. My fiancé left me for my business partner about 5 years ago. They'd been having an affair for 8 months. 8 months of dinners where I'd talk about quarterly reports and patent applications, completely oblivious to the fact that she couldn't stand me anymore. I'm sorry, Emma said softly. That's awful. It was. And I did exactly what you're doing. I locked myself away, convinced myself I was fundamentally unlovable, that there was something wrong with me. It took a long time to realize that some people are just selfish. Some people make bad choices. And sometimes we love people who don't deserve it. Their wine arrived, and they both took grateful sips. Emma felt something loosening in her chest, the tight knot of shame and hurt that had been choking her for days. "Did you ever trust anyone again?" she asked. "Honestly, I'm still working on it." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "I threw myself into work, which was easy enough. I made a lot of money, which turns out to be hollow comfort when you're eating takeout alone in your apartment at midnight. I go on dates occasionally, but I always find reasons why they won't work out. So I'm probably not the best person to be giving advice on moving forward." "But you're here," Emma pointed out, "having dinner with a virtual stranger because her mother asked you to. You're not a stranger. You're Catherine's daughter. And I had a massive crush on your mother in high school, so I figure I owe her." Emma laughed, genuinely surprised. "You did?" "Oh, absolutely. Everyone did. She was gorgeous and kind and actually talked to the nerdy kid in the computer lab. I think I wrote her terrible poetry that, thank God, I never gave her. I would pay good money to read that poetry. It's gone, burned, destroyed, wiped from existence," Marcus said solemnly, but his eyes were dancing. "Along with my collection of vintage Star Trek action figures and my extensive knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons lore." "You played D&D?" "For years. I was a dungeon master." Very serious about it, he grinned. "I'm still a nerd. Just a nerd with better clothes and more money." Their food arrived, and they fell into easier conversation. Emma found herself talking about her work at a small gallery in Soho, her passion for contemporary sculpture, her dream of curating her own exhibition one day. Marcus listened intently, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested, not just being polite. In turn, he told her about his company, the challenges of managing explosive growth, the satisfaction of creating technology that actually helped people, the loneliness of being in charge. He was self-deprecating and funny. Nothing like the intimidating billionaire she'd expected. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said over dessert. "Why did you really agree to this dinner? And please don't say it's because my mom asked. I feel like there's more to it." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering. "Your mother called me on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office, looking at a contract worth $200 million, and I was completely numb to it. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a conversation with someone who wasn't trying to sell me something or get something from me. When Catherine called and explained what was happening with you, I heard something in her voice. Genuine concern. Genuine love. It reminded me that those things still exist in the world." He paused, meeting her eyes. "And I thought, here's a chance to maybe do something meaningful. Not close a deal or increase market share, but actually help someone. Remind someone that they matter. Maybe remind myself too. So yes, your mother asked, but I said yes because I wanted to. Because I needed to." Emma felt tears prickling her eyes again, but this time they were different. "Thank you for being honest with me. Thank you for giving this a chance," Marcus replied. "I know it probably felt like the last thing you wanted to do tonight." "It was," Emma admitted. "But I'm glad I came. You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Someone more intimidating, more arrogant, more aware of his own importance." Marcus laughed. "Oh, I'm very aware of my importance. I'm just also aware that it's mostly circumstantial and ridiculous. I happened to write some good code at the right time and got lucky with investors. That doesn't make me a better person than anyone else. Not everyone sees it that way. That's their problem, not mine." They lingered over coffee, neither seeming eager to end the evening. Emma realized with surprise that she hadn't thought about her ex or Sophia in over an hour. She felt lighter somehow, as if Marcus had given her permission to be more than her heartbreak. When they finally left the restaurant, the night air was cool and crisp. They walked slowly back to where Marcus had parked, and Emma found herself reluctant to get in the car, to let this strange, unexpected evening end. "Would you want to walk for a bit?" Marcus asked as if reading her mind. "I could use the exercise, and the city is actually pretty at night." "I'd like that," Emma said. They wandered through the village, past brownstones and late-night cafes, street performers and couples holding hands. Marcus told her stories about his early days in New York, living in a terrible apartment with 3 roommates, eating ramen and dreaming of changing the world. Emma shared memories of her father, who died when she was 16, and how she still sometimes caught herself reaching for her phone to call him. "He would have liked you," Emma said impulsively. "He always said the measure of a person was how they treated people who couldn't do anything for them." "That's a good measure," Marcus agreed. "He sounds like he was a good man." "The best," Emma said softly. "I miss him every day." They stopped at a small park, sitting on a bench overlooking a fountain. The water sparkled in the lamplight, and somewhere nearby, someone was playing guitar. "Can I tell you something?" Emma asked. "This is going to sound crazy, but I had this moment tonight, during dinner, where I realized I was enjoying myself. And then I felt guilty for enjoying myself. Like I was betraying my sadness or something." "That's not crazy at all," Marcus said. "It's actually completely normal. Grief isn't linear, and neither is healing. You're allowed to have moments of happiness. It doesn't mean you're over what happened or that it doesn't matter. It just means you're human." "How'd you get so wise?" "Expensive therapy," Marcus said, deadpan, and Emma laughed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the fountain. Emma felt something shifting inside her, a tiny crack in the wall she'd built around herself. She wasn't healed, not by a long shot, but she felt less broken, less alone. "I should probably get you home," Marcus said eventually. "Your mother is probably wearing a hole in her carpet waiting up for you." "She's definitely still awake," Emma agreed. The drive back to the Upper East Side was quiet but not uncomfortable. When they pulled up outside her townhouse, Emma turned to Marcus. "Thank you," she said, "not just for dinner, but for being real with me. For not treating me like I'm fragile or pathetic." "You're neither of those things," Marcus said firmly. "You're hurting, which is different, and you're strong enough to heal from this. I know you don't believe that yet, but you will. Can I ask you something else?" "Anything. Would you want to do this again? Not as a favor to my mother, but just because I had a really good time tonight, and I'd like to see you again." Marcus smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "I'd like that very much. How about next Friday? There's an exhibition opening at the Whitney that I have tickets to but don't fully understand. You could educate me." "I would love that," Emma said, feeling a genuine smile spread across her face for the first time in days. She got out of the car, then leaned back in through the window. "Marcus, you're going to figure it out. The trust thing. I believe that about you, even if you don't believe it about yourself yet. Maybe we can figure it out together," he said softly. Emma walked up to her door, aware that Marcus was waiting to make sure she got inside safely. She turned and waved, and he waved back before pulling away from the curb. Inside, as predicted, Catherine was in the living room, pretending to read a book. She looked up as Emma entered, trying and failing to appear casual. "How was dinner?" she asked carefully. Emma sat down next to her mother and leaned her head on Catherine's shoulder. "It was really good, Mom. Really, really good." Catherine wrapped her arm around her daughter. "I'm so glad, sweetheart. He's different than I expected. He's kind and funny and smart, and he's been through something similar. He gets it. Are you going to see him again?" "Next Friday." The Whitney. Emma pulled back to look at her mother. "Thank you for calling him. I know I was angry about it, but you were right. I needed this." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I just wanted you to remember your worth. To see that there are good people out there who will appreciate who you are." "Mission accomplished," Emma said softly. "Though I think maybe you did us both a favor. He seemed like he needed this as much as I did." Over the following week, Emma found herself thinking about Marcus constantly. They texted occasionally, nothing serious, just random thoughts and observations. He sent her an article about a sculpture she'd mentioned wanting to see. She sent him a meme about terrible corporate jargon that made him laugh out loud during a board meeting. On Wednesday, A package arrived at the townhouse. Inside was a book about art history, specifically about contemporary sculpture, with a note in Marcus's neat handwriting. Thought you might enjoy this. The author has some interesting theories about space and form. See you Friday. Emma held the book to her chest, feeling something warm and hopeful unfurling inside her. She wasn't naive enough to think this was some grand love story, that Marcus Reed was going to sweep her off her feet and heal all her wounds. But she recognized what was happening as the beginning of something real. Connection. A friendship. Maybe, eventually, something more. Friday arrived with the first real hint of spring. Emma took her time getting ready, choosing a black dress that was elegant but not too formal, letting her hair fall loose around her shoulders. She felt nervous, but it was a good kind of nervous, anticipatory rather than anxious. Marcus picked her up at 6, wearing dark jeans and a charcoal blazer that made him look both polished and approachable. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." The Whitney was crowded with the art world elite, people Emma vaguely recognized from gallery openings and industry events. She saw a few of them do double takes when they spotted her with Marcus, clearly trying to figure out what billionaire Marcus Reed was doing at an art exhibition with someone most of them had never noticed before. But Marcus seemed oblivious to the attention. He stayed close to Emma as they moved through the exhibition, genuinely interested in her explanations of the work, asking questions that showed he was really listening. When they stopped in front of a large installation made of twisted metal and light, he stood there for a long moment. "Okay, I'll bite," he said. "What am I looking at?" Emma smiled. "What do you see? Chaos, maybe? Or something trying to break free of itself?" "That's actually perfect," Emma said, impressed. The artist was exploring themes of transformation and constraint. How we're shaped by our circumstances, but also have the power to reshape ourselves. Marcus looked at the installation with new eyes. "I like that. The idea that we're not stuck being who we were." "We're not," Emma said quietly, meeting his gaze. "We get to decide who we become." Something passed between them in that moment, an understanding, a recognition. They were both people who'd been hurt, who'd locked parts of themselves away for protection. But standing there together, surrounded by art that celebrated transformation and possibility, they were choosing to try again, to be open, to be brave. After the exhibition, they went to a small wine bar Marcus knew, tucked away on a side street. They sat close together at a tiny table, knees almost touching, and talked about everything and nothing. Emma told him about her dream of opening her own gallery, her fears that she didn't have what it took. Marcus shared his struggles with work-life balance, his worry that he'd become so focused on success that he'd forgotten what he was successful for. "What would you do if you could do anything?" Emma asked. "Money aside, reputation aside, all of it aside. What would make you happy?" Marcus thought about it, swirling his wine. "I think I'd want to use what I've built to help people. Not just through philanthropy, though that's important, but through genuine connection. I'd want to mentor young entrepreneurs who don't have the advantages I had. I'd want to invest in companies that are trying to solve real problems, not just make quick returns. I'd want to have a life outside of work. Maybe a family someday, if I could trust someone enough to build that with them." "You will," Emma said with certainty. "You're too good a person not to." "What about you? Gallery aside, what would make you happy?" Emma considered the question carefully. "I want to feel like myself again. The version of me that existed before I started molding myself to fit what I thought someone else wanted. I want to make decisions based on what I want, not what I think I should want. And I want to let someone in again, eventually. Someone who sees all of me and doesn't want me to be different. Whoever that person is will be very lucky," Marcus said softly. "Maybe," Emma said, holding his gaze, "or maybe I'll be the lucky one." They left the wine bar after midnight, walking slowly through the quiet streets. When they reached Emma's townhouse, they stood on the sidewalk, neither quite ready to say goodbye. "I have to go to San Francisco next week for work," Marcus said. "But I was wondering if you'd want to have dinner again when I get back? Maybe somewhere less public, more relaxed." I could cook for you, if you don't mind risking food poisoning. Emma laughed. You cook? I'm actually pretty good at it. It's one of the few things I do that doesn't involve a screen. Then yes, I'd love that. Marcus stepped closer, and for a moment Emma thought he might kiss her. Her heart beat faster, and she realized she wanted him to. But instead, he reached up and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers gentle. I'm really glad your mother called me, he said. Me too, Emma whispered. She watched him drive away, then went inside to find her mother still awake. Naturally. How was the exhibition? Catherine asked. It was wonderful, Mom. He's wonderful. Catherine smiled, but there was a knowing look in her eyes. You're falling for him. Emma sank onto the couch. Is that crazy? It's only been 2 weeks since Kyle. I should be healing, not developing feelings for someone new. Who says you can't do both? Catherine sat beside her. Sweetheart, there's no timeline for these things. Marcus is clearly special. I saw that in him when we were 17, and I see it now. If you have feelings for him, that's not wrong. It's not a betrayal of your healing process. Maybe it's part of it. What if I'm just rebounding? What if I'm just looking for someone to make me feel better about myself? Are you? Catherine asked gently. When you're with Marcus, are you thinking about Kyle? Are you trying to make yourself feel better? Or are you just genuinely enjoying Marcus's company? Emma thought about it honestly. I'm enjoying his company. I'm interested in him as a person. When I'm with him, I don't think about Kyle at all. Then trust that. Trust yourself. The week Marcus was in San Francisco felt longer than it should have. They texted every day, sometimes about important things, sometimes about nothing at all. He sent her pictures of the Golden Gate Bridge at sunset, the view from his hotel room, a food truck he thought she'd like. She sent him photos of pieces she was considering for the gallery, her mother's cat doing ridiculous things, the coffee she was drinking. It felt easy, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. When Marcus got back, he invited Emma to his apartment in Tribeca. She'd expected something ostentatious, a display of wealth, but instead found a space that felt lived in and personal. There were bookshelves overflowing with books, art on the walls that was clearly chosen for love, not investment, comfortable furniture that invited sitting. The kitchen was well used, with copper pots hanging from a rack and a collection of spices that suggested someone who actually cooked. Wow, Emma said, looking around. This is not what I expected. What did you expect? A chrome and glass monstrosity. Kind of, yeah. Marcus grinned. I had one of those in my 20s. Hated every minute of it. This place feels like home. He'd made pasta from scratch, which Emma found both impressive and endearing. They cooked together, Marcus teaching her how to roll the dough, Emma making him laugh with her complete lack of coordination. They drank wine and listened to music, moving around each other in the kitchen with an ease that felt almost choreographed. Over dinner, the conversation turned more serious. I've been thinking about what you said, Marcus began, about becoming the version of yourself that existed before you started molding yourself for someone else. I realized I've been doing the same thing, not for a person but for some idea of who I thought I should be. The successful entrepreneur, the tech innovator, the guy who has it all figured out. And you don't have it all figured out. Not even close, he smiled ruefully. I've been so focused on building something that matters professionally that I forgot to build something that matters personally. These last few weeks with you, I've remembered what it feels like to connect with someone. To be seen for who I actually am, not who people need me to be. Emma reached across the table and took his hand. I see you, Marcus. The brilliant, kind, slightly nerdy guy who burns garlic bread and knows way too much about Tolkien. The garlic bread incident is behind us, Marcus protested. And you can never know too much about Tolkien. After dinner, they moved to his couch, ostensibly to watch a movie but really just to keep talking. Emma found herself tucked against his side, his arm around her shoulders, feeling safer than she had in months. Can I tell you something? She said quietly.
I'm scared.
Of what? Of this. Of feeling this way about you so soon. of trusting someone again, of being wrong about you the way I was wrong about Kyle. She pulled back to look at him. What if I'm making another mistake? Marcus cupped her face in his hands, his expression serious. I can't promise you'll never get hurt again. I can't promise I won't make mistakes or that this will be easy. But I can promise I'll be honest with you. I'll respect you. I'll never make you doubt yourself or question your worth. And I'll never, ever cheat on you or betray your trust. How can you be so sure? Because I know what it feels like to be betrayed. I know the damage it does. I would never inflict that on someone I cared about, he paused. And I care about you, Emma. More than I expected to, more than I probably should after just a few weeks. But I can't help it. You're smart and funny and passionate about what you do. You're kind without being naive. You're strong enough to be vulnerable. I see who you are, and I like everything I see. Emma felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I care about you too. So much it terrifies me. Then let's be terrified together, Marcus said softly and kissed her. It was gentle at first, tentative, both of them afraid to push too hard or move too fast. But then Emma deepened the kiss, and Marcus responded, pulling her closer. And suddenly there was nothing tentative about it. There was heat and need and promise. Everything they'd been holding back pouring out between them. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Emma laughed. Okay, so we're doing this. We're doing this, Marcus confirmed. But I want to do it right. No rushing, no pressure. We take our time and figure this out together. I'd like that, Emma said, settling back against him. They stayed on the couch for hours, talking and kissing and simply being together. Emma told him about her father's death, how it had shattered her family and made her afraid to love too deeply. Marcus shared the full story of his broken engagement, the betrayal that had made him put up walls he hadn't fully realized were there until Emma had started dismantling them. It was after 2 in the morning when Emma finally called a car to take her home. Marcus walked her down to the street, keeping his arm around her against the cool night air. Thank you for tonight, Emma said. For dinner, for being honest with me, for all of it. Thank you for giving me a chance, Marcus replied. For seeing past the headlines and the money to whoever I actually am underneath. That's the only person I'm interested in, Emma assured him. The next few months unfolded like a dream Emma was afraid to wake from. She and Marcus settled into a rhythm that felt both exciting and comfortable. They had dinner together several times a week, sometimes at nice restaurants but more often at one of their apartments, cooking together and talking for hours. They went to gallery openings and museums, Broadway shows, and small jazz clubs in the village. Marcus came to the gallery where Emma worked and spent an afternoon letting her explain every piece in the current exhibition, asking thoughtful questions and making her laugh with his attempts at art criticism. Emma met Marcus's small circle of close friends, people who'd known him before the money and success, who treated him like a normal person and teased him mercilessly. She liked them immediately, especially his college roommate David, who had an endless supply of embarrassing Marcus stories. Did he tell you about the time he tried to impress a girl by cooking her dinner and set off the fire alarm in our dorm? David asked, grinning. I did tell her that, actually, Marcus said, but he was smiling. Full transparency in this relationship. This relationship? David raised his eyebrows. So it's official? Emma and Marcus looked at each other, and Emma felt a flutter of nerves. They hadn't actually defined what they were doing, content to just be together without labels. But hearing someone else say it made it real in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. It's official, Marcus said, reaching for Emma's hand. If that's okay with you. That's very okay with me, Emma replied, lacing her fingers through his. Catherine was delighted, of course, though she tried to play it cool. She invited Marcus over for Sunday dinner, grilling him subtly about his intentions while serving her legendary pot roast. Marcus handled it with grace and humor, answering her questions honestly and making it clear that he was serious about Emma. Your mother is protective, he said later as they walked through Central Park. I like that about her. She's been through a lot, Emma said. Losing my dad, raising me alone, watching me get hurt. She just wants to make sure I'm okay. You are okay, though, aren't you? Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. I mean, with us. With how fast this is moving. Emma thought about it. For months ago, she'd been curled up in bed, convinced she'd never trust anyone again. Now she was standing in Central Park with a man who made her laugh and challenged her and saw her for exactly who she was. It should have felt scary, but instead it felt right. I'm more than okay, she said. I know it's fast, and I know people probably think I'm crazy for jumping into something so soon after Kyle. But this doesn't feel like jumping. It feels like finding something I didn't even know I was looking for. Marcus pulled her close, kissing her forehead. I feel the same way. You've changed everything for me, Emma. Before you, I was just going through the motions. Now I actually want to come home at night. I want to tell you about my day. I want to hear your voice and see your smile. You've reminded me what it feels like to really live. That's how I feel about you, Emma whispered. Like I'm finally myself again, but better somehow. Like you see the best parts of me and bring them out. They stood there holding each other as joggers and families and other couples moved around them, and Emma felt something settle deep in her chest. This was real. This was right. Whatever happened next, she was ready for it. 3 months later, Marcus's company announced a major acquisition that would effectively triple its size and valuation. The news was everywhere. Marcus on the cover of every business magazine. His name trending on social media, interviews and photo shoots, and endless demands on his time. Emma watched him struggle with the pressure, saw the exhaustion creeping in around his eyes, the way his shoulders tensed whenever his phone rang. She did her best to be supportive, to be understanding when he had to cancel dinner plans or take calls at midnight. But she also saw him slipping back into old patterns, letting work consume everything, forgetting to eat or sleep or take care of himself. One evening, she showed up at his apartment unannounced to find him still in his office at 9 o'clock, staring at his computer screen with a cup of cold coffee beside him. Have you eaten today? She asked from the doorway. Marcus jumped, clearly not having heard her come in. Emma, I'm sorry. I forgot about dinner, didn't I? You did. But that's not why I'm here. She walked into the office and gently closed his laptop. When was the last time you had a real meal? I had a protein bar around 3. Marcus, that was 6 hours ago. Emma pulled him to his feet. Come on. I'm making you dinner, and you're going to eat it, and then you're going to tell me what's really going on. He tried to protest, but she was firm, leading him to the kitchen and pushing him into a chair. She made scrambled eggs and toast, simple but nourishing, and watched him eat like he hadn't seen food in days. I'm sorry, he said finally. I know I've been impossible lately. You haven't been impossible. You've been overwhelmed. Emma sat across from him. But you're also falling back into old habits, working yourself to death, forgetting that there's more to life than the next deal or the next milestone. I know. You're right. Marcus rubbed his face tiredly. It's just, this acquisition is huge. There are hundreds of people counting on me to get it right. Jobs, investments, the future of the company. I can't afford to screw it up. And you won't. You're brilliant at what you do, Marcus. But you're also a human being who needs sleep and food and connection. You can't pour from an empty cup. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You were just too distracted to notice. Emma smiled to take the sting out of her words. Seriously though, I'm worried about you. And I'm worried about us. I feel like I'm losing you to this deal. Marcus reached across the table and took her hands. You're not losing me. Promise. I've just been so focused on not failing that I forgot about everything else. But you're right. This isn't sustainable. So what are we going to do about it? I don't know. I can't exactly step away from the acquisition. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to set boundaries, to delegate, to remember that you have people who can help you carry this load. Emma squeezed his hands. And I'm asking you to remember that I'm here, that we're building something together, and that matters just as much as what you're building at work. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and Emma saw emotions flickering across his face. Guilt, fear, love, exhaustion. Finally, he nodded. You're absolutely right. I've been so afraid of failing professionally that I was about to fail at something much more important. He stood up and pulled her into his arms.
I'm sorry, Emma.
I'll do better. I'll make time for us, for me, for the things that actually matter. I'm going to hold you to that, Emma said, pressing her face into his chest. And he kept his promise. Marcus started delegating more, trusting his team to handle things he would have previously insisted on doing himself. He set boundaries around his work hours, actually turning off his phone during dinner. He made time for morning runs and Sunday brunches with Emma and movie nights where they did nothing but lounge on the couch together. The acquisition still took up a lot of his energy, but he approached it differently, with more balance and perspective. And Emma was there through all of it, celebrating his victories and supporting him through the setbacks, reminding him who he was beyond the CEO title and the board meetings. 8 months after their first dinner, on a crisp October evening, Marcus took Emma to the rooftop of his building. He'd arranged for a private dinner to be set up, candles and flowers, and the city spread out below them like a carpet of lights. "This is beautiful," Emma breathed, taking in the scene. "What's the occasion?" "I wanted to do something special for you," Marcus said, "to show you how much you mean to me." They ate and talked and watched the sun set over the Hudson River, the sky turning shades of orange and pink and purple. As the first stars appeared, Marcus took Emma's hand and led her to the edge of the roof, where they could see the entire city. "A year ago, I was standing on this same rooftop," he began, feeling completely lost. "I had everything I thought I wanted: success, money, respect, but I was profoundly lonely. I'd convinced myself that was just the price of ambition, that connection and intimacy were luxuries I couldn't afford." He turned to face her, still holding her hand. "And then your mother called me and I met you and everything changed. You reminded me what it feels like to be human, to be vulnerable, to let someone in. You've made me want to be better, not just professionally but as a person." Emma felt tears gathering in her eyes. "Marcus." "Wait. Let me finish," he smiled nervously. "I know it hasn't been that long. I know some people would say we're moving too fast or that we should wait. But I've learned something this year. Life is short and uncertain. And when you find something real, you hold on to it. You don't wait for the perfect moment, because there is no perfect moment. There's just now, and the choice to be brave." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Emma's breath caught in her throat. "Emma Montgomery, you are the most extraordinary person I've ever known. You're brilliant and kind and strong and real. You see me, not the public version, not the CEO, but me. And somehow, inexplicably, you love me anyway." He opened the box to reveal a stunning ring, a sapphire surrounded by diamonds that caught the light and threw it back in 1,000 directions. "I know I'm supposed to wait a year or 2 years or however long the rules say, but I don't want to wait. I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" Emma was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but she was also smiling wider than she ever had. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, of course, yes." Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, and then he was kissing her, and Emma was laughing and crying at the same time, overwhelmed by joy and love and the sheer impossibility that this was her life now. "I can't believe this is happening," she said when they finally broke apart. "A year ago, I thought I'd never trust anyone again. I thought I was broken." "You were never broken," Marcus said firmly. "You were healing, and you let me heal alongside you. We saved each other, I think." "We did," Emma agreed. "My mom is going to flip out, you know, in a good way, but still. I already asked her permission, actually, last week." "You did?" "I did. She cried and hugged me and told me that if I ever hurt you, she'd make me regret it. Then she gave me her blessing and her father's wedding ring to use as inspiration for choosing yours." Emma looked at her ring with new eyes, seeing the love and thought that had gone into it. "I love you so much." "I love you too," Marcus said. "More than I ever thought I could love anyone." They stayed on the rooftop until the city lights blurred below them and the night air grew cold enough that they had to huddle together for warmth. They made plans and dreamed about the future and laughed at how impossible the whole thing seemed. When Emma finally got home that night, she found her mother waiting up. As always, Catherine took one look at her daughter's face and knew. "He asked you," she said, pulling Emma into a hug. "He asked me," Emma confirmed, showing her mother the ring. "And I said yes." Catherine held her daughter at arm's length, studying her face. "You're happy. Really, truly happy." "I am, Mom. Happier than I ever thought possible. He's everything I didn't know I needed." "Your father would have loved him," Catherine said softly. "He always said you'd find someone who saw your light and helped you shine brighter. Marcus does that." "He does," Emma agreed. "And Mom, thank you for calling him that day, for pushing me out of my room and making me give life a chance. If you hadn't done that, you would have found your way eventually," Catherine said. "But I'm glad I could help speed up the process. You deserve this happiness, sweetheart. You deserve all of it." They stayed up late into the night, talking about wedding plans and the future and the strange, beautiful way life had of surprising you when you least expected it. Emma thought about the girl she'd been a year ago, heartbroken and convinced she'd never recover. She wished she could tell that girl that everything would be okay. That pain wasn't forever. That love could surprise you in the most unexpected ways. The wedding was small and intimate, held in the garden of a historic estate in the Hudson Valley. Emma wore her grandmother's lace veil and carried white roses. Catherine cried through the entire ceremony. Marcus's voice cracked when he said his vows, promising to love Emma in sickness and health, in success and failure, in joy and sorrow, for all the days of his life. Emma promised the same, adding that she would always remind him to eat lunch and take breaks and remember that work wasn't everything. Marcus laughed through his tears, and everyone else laughed too, because they all knew it was true. When they kissed as husband and wife, Emma felt a completeness she'd never experienced before. This was what she'd been moving toward all along, through heartbreak and healing, through fear and bravery. This moment, this person, this love. At the reception, Catherine gave a toast that had everyone reaching for tissues. She talked about watching her daughter grow from a heartbroken girl into a confident woman, about the phone call that had changed everything, about knowing in her bones that Marcus was special. "I didn't know when I called you that day," she said, looking at Marcus, "that I was introducing my daughter to her future husband. I just knew you were a good man, and Emma needed to be reminded that good men existed. But somewhere along the way, something magical happened. You found each other, not because I pushed you together, but because you were meant to find each other. And watching you two together, seeing the way you look at each other and support each other and bring out the best in each other, I know that this is the real thing. This is the forever kind of love." She raised her glass. "To Emma and Marcus, may your love continue to grow deeper and stronger with each passing year. May you never stop making each other laugh. And may you always remember that the best things in life come when you're brave enough to try again." "To Emma and Marcus?" everyone echoed, and Emma looked at her husband, and saw her entire future reflected in his eyes. Later, as they danced under strings of lights while fireflies blinked in the garden around them, Marcus pulled Emma close and whispered in her ear, "I have a confession to make." "Oh," Emma looked up at him, smiling. "Should I be worried? When your mother first called me, asking me to take you to dinner, I looked you up online. I saw your pictures from the gallery opening the year before, and I thought you were beautiful. But I said yes because I owed your mother a favor, and I figured it would be one dinner and that would be it. And then I met you, and you were so much more than beautiful. You were smart and funny and real. You called me on my bullshit. You made me want to be better. And I realized I was in serious trouble." Emma laughed. "When did you know?" "That I loved you? Probably that second dinner at the wine bar. You asked me what would make me happy, and I realized that I was happier in that moment, talking to you, than I'd been in years." "What about you?" "The night you cooked for me," Emma said. "When you told me you saw me, the real me, not the broken version or the perfect version. Just me. That's when I knew." "So we were both goners pretty early on." We were, Emma agreed. But I think maybe that's how it works. When it's right, you just know. They danced until the stars came out in full force, until the band packed up and the caterers cleared away the dishes and the guests started drifting toward their cars. Finally, it was just the two of them in the garden, swaying to music only they could hear. "Ready to start our life together, Mrs. Reed?" Marcus asked. Emma smiled at the sound of her new name. She'd decided to hyphenate, to honor both who she'd been and who she was becoming. Emma Montgomery Reed. Felt right. "I've been ready since that first dinner," she said. "I just didn't know it yet." 2 years later, Emma stood in her own gallery, the one Marcus had helped her open. The dream she'd been afraid to pursue until he'd encouraged her to take the leap, preparing for the opening of her biggest exhibition yet. The gallery had become a hub for emerging contemporary artists, a place where talent was nurtured and risks were celebrated. Marcus arrived just as she was making final adjustments to the lighting on a particularly challenging sculpture. He carried 2 cups of coffee and wore the expression he always got when he watched her work. Proud, awed, and deeply in love. "You did it," he said, handing her the coffee. "This is incredible, Emma. Really incredible." She looked around at the space she'd created, at the art that would be viewed by hundreds of people that evening, and felt a surge of pride. This was hers. She'd built this. And yes, Marcus had helped, with funding and connections and endless encouragement. But the vision was all hers. "We did it," she corrected. "I couldn't have done this without you." "You absolutely could have," Marcus said. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." That evening, the gallery was packed with collectors and critics and art lovers. Emma moved through the crowd, discussing the pieces, introducing artists, watching dreams come to life. And through it all, Marcus was there, sometimes at her side but often in the background, content to watch her shine. Catherine came too, beaming with pride, telling anyone who would listen about her brilliant daughter and her wonderful son-in-law. She'd taken to Marcus completely, treating him like the son she'd never had, and Marcus returned her affection in full. Late in the evening, when the crowd had thinned and only close friends remained, Emma found Marcus standing in front of one of the pieces, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, slipping her hand into his. "I'm thinking about how lucky I am," he said. "About how different my life would be if your mother hadn't called me that day. About how close I came to missing all of this. But she did call, and you said yes, and here we are." "Here we are," Marcus agreed. He turned to face her. "I have some news, actually. I've decided to step back from the company. Not completely, but significantly. I'm appointing a new CEO to handle day-to-day operations." Emma's eyes widened. "Really? Marcus, that's huge. Are you sure?" "I'm sure. I've been thinking about what I really want to do with my life, with my resources, with my time. And I realized that the company will be fine without me at the helm. It's grown beyond what it needs from me anyway. But what I can do, what I want to do, is invest in people and ideas that might not get traditional funding. Startups led by underrepresented founders. Social enterprises trying to solve real problems. Artists who need support to take their work to the next level." He squeezed her hand. "I want to be a mentor, a supporter, an enabler of dreams, like your mother was for us. She saw what we could be before we saw it ourselves, and she gave us the push we needed. I want to do that for other people." Emma felt tears gathering in her eyes for about the 100th time that week. "That's beautiful, Marcus. And it's so perfectly you." "I learned from the best," he said, kissing her softly. "You showed me that success isn't just about what you build for yourself. It's about what you build for others, how you lift people up, how you create spaces for beauty and possibility." They stood there together, surrounded by art and possibility and the life they'd built together, and Emma thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first awkward dinner to this moment, standing in her gallery with her husband, surrounded by the manifestation of their shared dreams. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt and fear, times when old wounds threatened to resurface, days when work overwhelmed them both. but they'd navigated it together with honesty and communication and a commitment to always choosing each other. "I love you," Emma said simply. "Thank you for being exactly who you are." "I love you too," Marcus replied. "Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for making me better." As the last guests departed and they closed up the gallery for the night, Emma thought about the girl she'd been 3 years ago, curled up in bed with a broken heart and no hope for the future. If she could speak to that girl now, she'd tell her that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best thing that happens to you. That endings are also beginnings. That love finds you when you're brave enough to let it in. She'd tell her that her mother's desperate phone call to an old friend would change everything. That the man who showed up for that first dinner would become her partner, her love, her home. That heartbreak wasn't the end of her story but the beginning of something beautiful. Most of all, she'd tell her to hold on, to believe in possibility, to trust that joy was waiting on the other side of pain, if only she was brave enough to reach for it. Marcus locked the gallery door behind them and they walked out into the New York night, hand in hand, heading home to the life they'd built together. And Emma knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be.